Have you ever noticed how some people, just months after retiring, suddenly seem frail, withdrawn, and almost like a completely different person? Gerald, a former chief engineer for a major company in Boston, had a stroke only 3 months after he retired. Before that, he was healthy, drove his own car, and took his wife for walks each evening. But the moment he stopped working, everything changed. He grew much quieter, spent his days just drifting around the house, and often became irritable for no reason. What happened? It was not just losing a job, it was losing a piece of his purpose. Retirement for many is the finish line after a lifetime of hard work. But for some, especially after a major event like a stroke, it marks the start of a journey filled with emptiness, loneliness, and a great deal of pain. You might have thought, I'll relax, do some gardening, travel, and enjoy my golden years. But reality often looks different. Many people after turning 65 fall into a state of disorientation, feeling they no longer have value, and worse, they don't know what they were living for anymore. Neuroscience has shown that when the brain loses stimulation from work, its neural connections start to weaken. Moods plummet, sleep is disrupted, and if you are not careful, it can push you into a danger zone, just as Gerald experienced. The good news is, your post-retirement feelings are not set in stone. We can absolutely identify them and change them. In today's video, I will walk you through the 5 common negative emotions stroke survivors often face after retirement, from a loss of purpose and loneliness, to health anxiety and even depression from sudden lifestyle shifts. And most importantly, we will explore gentle yet effective ways to move past those emotions step by step. If you are in this phase or know someone who is, please stick with me. Perhaps one small change today is all it takes to find that peace of mind you have been looking for. And if you are getting value from this, drop a 1 in the comments below just to let me know you're here with me. Number 1, a lost sense of purpose. If there is one thing that leaves many stroke survivors feeling completely empty after retirement, it is losing their sense of purpose. Mr. Daniel, 68, was a history teacher at a high school in Oregon. His whole life revolved around blackboards, chalk, and stories about the world wars. But after a mild stroke, he retired on his doctor's advice. He thought rest would speed up his recovery, but just a few months later, he began to feel adrift. He said, "I no longer know why I'm getting up in the morning." The problem was not that he stopped working. It was that he lost his daily reason for being. Before, students needed him, colleagues expected him. The school bell called him to class. Now everything was quiet, and in that quiet, he lost himself. This is not an uncommon feeling. It is especially true for those who held positions of great responsibility or were used to a busy pace of life. After a stroke, when forced to stop, they do not just lose a key, they lose a part of their identity. No longer Mr. Daniel, Ms. Mary, or Chief Thomas, just a name, feeling empty. Psychology calls this a post-retirement identity crisis. When people no longer know who they are, they can easily slip into apathy, self-isolation, and even begin to have negative thoughts about the value of their own life. But here's the thing, purpose does not have to come from a career. It can come from the smallest things, like tending to a plant, reading with your grandchild, or sharing your life experience with the community. After his daughter encouraged him to join a book club for stroke survivors, Mr. Daniel started writing down history stories as short essays. From then on, he had something to look forward to each morning, an unfinished draft, a group meeting to share, and slowly that emptiness began to fill. If you are feeling the way Mr. Daniel once did, start with the smallest thing. Send a text to check on an old friend. Pick up a book. Jot down an idea. Because a sense of purpose, no matter how small, can be the very lifeline that pulls you from the depths of emptiness. And when you have a reason to keep going, your body, even after being knocked down, will also find the strength to heal. Number 2, loneliness and social isolation. If a lost sense of purpose is emptiness on the inside, then loneliness is the silence that closes in from the outside, and it's more dangerous than you might think. Mrs. Susan, age 72, lives in Sacramento. Before her stroke, she drove to church every Sunday, met friends after the service, and chatted about their weeks. But after the stroke, she could no longer drive. The get-togethers became less frequent. A week passed, then 2. with no calls. She started to feel like she had disappeared from the world. She shared, "I never thought the hardest part would be physical recovery. It was feeling like I was no longer part of life's rhythm." Isolation does not always stem from physical distance. Sometimes it comes from our own thoughts. "I don't want to be a bother. They're busy. Who would want to hang out with me like this?" And slowly, a once outgoing person becomes withdrawn, and a once warm person grows cold. After a stroke, feeling dependent makes many people shy away from contact. They fear becoming a burden. They fear being pitied. They fear that look of concern. And those fears quietly build a wall, cutting them off from connections that were once a source of joy. But the truth is, humans are not meant to live alone. More than any medicine or therapy, it is warm touches, listening ears, and familiar laughter that truly help our hearts come alive again. Mrs. Susan almost declined an invitation to a community rehab group. She was afraid of explaining why her left hand was still weak. But her daughter gently said, "You don't have to explain anything. You just have to show up." The first meeting, she sat quietly and listened. The second, she laughed at a clumsy story from a new friend. By the third, she was sharing her own story for the first time in months. Connection does not have to be a grand gesture. One text message sent, one hello returned, one moment opening the door to sunshine, and you will see the world is still there, ready to welcome you back. If you feel yourself pulling away from everything, please remember, you are not alone. Thousands have felt just as you do, and many of them have found their way back to life by starting one small conversation. Do not let loneliness eat away at your heart in silence, because opening just one door could be the door to a new life, where you are still needed, heard, and loved. Number 3, anxiety about health in the future. There is a worry that does not show on the face but always churns inside. It is the anxiety over your health and future after a stroke. Mr. Leonard, age 70, was always a strong, take-charge kind of person. Before his stroke, he would fix his own lawnmower and work in the yard for hours. But after collapsing in his kitchen one morning, his perspective on life changed. Though he got help in time and was out of danger, he could no longer sleep at night. He would often whisper to his wife, "What if I don't wake up tomorrow?" That is a truth few dare to admit. After a stroke, your mind is never quite as calm. A moment of dizziness can send you into a panic. A slight chest pain can make you imagine the absolute worst. And the future, once just uncertain, now becomes something to fear. Psychology calls this post-event health anxiety, where every tiny signal from your body gets interpreted as a catastrophe. People in this state fall into a vicious cycle. Fear leads to stress, then insomnia, then fatigue, then even more anxiety. And just like that, mental and physical health spiral downward together. It is not just worry for themselves. Many also agonize. If I fall again, who will care for my wife? Will I become a burden on my kids? Is there enough in savings for all the medication? These questions spin on a loop inside their heads, like a clock that will not stop. But you know, there is one truth that helped me, and so many other stroke survivors, find peace again. No one can control the future, but everyone can prepare for it with one small action today. Mr. Leonard started doing just that very simply. Each morning he wrote down 2 things he was grateful for. I can still walk. I still have my partner by my side. Then he set one small goal for the day. Walk around the yard for 5 minutes, call an old friend, or just make the bed after getting up. Those seemingly tiny actions are actually the first bricks in rebuilding your confidence, piece by piece. And when your mind is busy with what you can do, it has less room for what you cannot control. If you are worried about another stroke, or if the years ahead feel too dark, please start with one small thing you can control today. Because the future is not built on predictions, it is built on the steps you choose to take. And health is not just about your heart or brain. It starts with the belief that I can still take charge of my day. If you are still with me and finding this helpful, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know. And if you have not already, you might want to subscribe and ring that bell so you do not miss what's next. Your support helps us create more content just like this. Number 4. Lack of movement leading to stress. After a stroke, many people assume that complete rest is what is most important. But few realize that a long-term lack of movement is a silent trigger for both physical and mental stress. Mr. Anthony, 73, was a man of great discipline. He walked every morning, did wellness exercises with friends in the park, and made coffee for his wife himself. But after his stroke, he was told to avoid exertion. For the first few weeks, he dutifully stayed in bed or sat in his chair by the window, barely moving. Gradually, he began to feel heavy. His back ached, his legs grew stiff. But what worried him most was his mood. He felt restless and irritable, but he did not know why. He started snapping at his wife and grew quiet when his grandkids visited. A once jovial man became distant and cold. What was the reason? It is because a body at rest does not produce enough mood-regulating hormones like endorphins and serotonin. The brain becomes understimulated, circulation slows, and that is what sends your mind into a depressed state. A lack of movement also leads to muscle stiffness and poor blood flow, which increases fatigue. And that vicious cycle repeats. You feel tired, so you do not want to move, which makes you more tired and more irritable until you are trapped in a silent stress that no one can see or hear. What is important to note is this feeling often goes unnamed. Outsiders might just think an older person is becoming grumpy or short-tempered, but really it is the silent cry of a body that is being neglected. After refusing many times, Mr. Anthony finally agreed to a short walk with his grandson each morning, just 5 minutes around the yard. Then it became 10 minutes. One day he smiled faintly when an old song played on a radio as they passed a neighbor's house. His wife, watching from the porch, said, "I think he's finally coming back." You see, movement does not have to mean intense workouts or a trip to the gym. Sometimes a gentle shoulder roll, a small stretch, or a few steps around the room is enough to reawaken the flow of energy inside you. If you are feeling down or find yourself more irritable than usual, do not be so quick to blame yourself. Maybe what you need is not a pill, but a little gentle movement to remind your body, I am still alive and I can still move. Start today with just 5 minutes, not to lose weight or to look good, just to feel yourself returning, gently yet steadily, one step at a time. Number 5, depression from an abrupt lifestyle change. There is an emotion that is hard to pin down, yet it is silently present in so many people after they retire or have a stroke. It is depression caused by a sudden change in lifestyle. Many people mistake depression for simple sadness, but in reality, post-stroke and retirement depression is a very real biological and psychological response that needs to be spotted early and handled with care. When your lifestyle changes too fast, from busy to quiet, from independent to dependent, your mind does not have time to adjust. It loses its bearings, its anchor, and without someone to talk to or a clear plan for adapting, negative feelings can build up like a thick fog with no escape. Mrs. Linda, 69, had been a very active person. She drove herself to the market, did yoga weekly, and volunteered at the local senior center. Her life was a vibrant string of conversations, schedules, and warm get-togethers. Then a stroke happened out of the blue. It was followed by weeks in the hospital, physical therapy sessions, and finally a blanket of silence. She stopped going to yoga. She no longer drove anywhere. The phone calls trickled to a stop. Everything that once made up Linda seemed to have been stripped away in just a few short weeks. At first, she just felt sad. Then she started staying up late, eating less, and losing interest in the news or music. One morning, she told her daughter, "I don't see any reason to get up anymore." The good news is we can absolutely walk through that storm if we know when to look for the light. For Mrs. Linda, the turning point was a small change. Her 9-year-old grandson, Noah, asked her to read him a story every night over video call. The first time she struggled to sit up and catch her breath. The second time she picked out a new book. By the third week, she put on a nice shirt and a little lipstick because I have a date with Noah tonight. Those moments of connection, however brief, helped remind her that she still mattered in someone's life, and that, more than any medicine, pulled her out of the shadows of depression. If you find yourself losing interest in everything, feeling sad for no reason, or just wanting to lie down and do nothing, gently ask yourself, am I trying to change too quickly? And if the answer is yes, give yourself permission to create a new plan, a new lifestyle, rebuilt one small piece at a time, at a pace that feels right for you. Because life after a stroke is not a full stop. It is just a sharp turn in the road. And you can absolutely keep going, slower, but deeper, warmer, and more meaningfully than ever before. So we have just walked through the 5 quiet but very real emotions many people face after a stroke and retirement. From a lost sense of purpose, loneliness, and health anxiety, to stress from inactivity and depression from a sudden lifestyle change. These seemingly small things, if not addressed, can become invisible walls, trapping you in a nameless sorrow, day after day, week after week, year after year. But you know what? None of us are helpless. No one has to stay stuck in that emotional darkness, because every worry, no matter how heavy, can be lightened with one small change. A phone call, a slow walk around the house, opening the curtains a little earlier than usual. Those actions, as simple as they are enough to remind you you are still here and you still have the power to choose. Even if you have fallen, even if you have been afraid, even if you have thought, I'm not useful anymore, the truth is you can still write the next chapter of your life. It does not have to be loud or perfect. You just have to be willing to start right where you are. Mr. Leonard, Mrs. Susan, Mr. Anthony, and Mrs. Linda, they all thought they had reached the end of a chapter after their strokes. But by listening to their bodies, reconnecting, and taking small actions every day, they found themselves again. And if they could do it, you can too. You do not need a gym. You do not need big, grand plans. All it takes is a few minutes a day for yourself and the belief that the small choices you make today can make a huge difference in the years to come. Now it is your turn. What is resonating with you after hearing all this? Have you experienced any of the 5 feelings we talked about? And if you could pick one thing to change, starting today, what would it be? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes your comment can be the one that makes someone else feel, okay, I am not the only one. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video was helpful, a like, subscribe, and share would mean the world. It is your support that allows us to continue spreading thoughtful, kind messages to this community. I will see you in the next video, where every step, no matter how slow, truly matters.